In today's podcast, I want to talk about really the different types of business models that are out there in the culinary world and why I believe the personal chef business model is the best by far out there. If you are a culinarian, a chef, a cook, I'm going to walk through the three main business models and then introduce you to the personal chef business model. Hey, I'm Andres Hinojosa. Welcome back to the Chefpreneur Podcast. And whether you're listening to this on our podcast platform or you're watching this on YouTube, welcome, welcome, welcome. So let's get right into it today. I really want to talk about, because this has been something that honestly I say to many people as I'm talking to them, as I'm having mentorship sessions with them. Sometimes they find us again on YouTube, they listen to our podcast, or they find one of our free classes, or they're investing in one of our programs. And a lot of the time, I don't really understand sometimes why there's this love and this obsession for some of these other business models that are out there. And I want to really break some of these down. And again, this is not meant to offend anybody. This is not meant to make anybody feel down or anything. I do have my notes pulled up over here. So if you see me kind of looking over here, I'm just pulling up my notes. And I want to talk about the different, again, types of business models. Now, is there more? There's probably, technically tens or hundreds of businesses that you can get into as a chef or a passionate culinarian. But I want to talk about the three main kind of business models, and then I want to introduce you to the fourth, which is having a personal chef company. And I want to try to lay out, my goal in this is to really just lay these all out and give you some factual things that maybe will help you understand the financial aspects of it, but also just kind of the pros and cons in general about it. So before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about my story, because it relates, I think, into every single person that I talk to as a chef, as a cook, especially people kind of coming through the culinary world. When I first had a passion for cooking, which came from my grandmother, if I'm being honest with you, my grandma Yaya, I really felt like, man, I would love to own a restaurant someday. And I'm sure many of you are thinking that same thing. It's like, man, I would love to have a restaurant one day. But the truth of the matter is that it's just not a good business model. I'm sorry, it's just not a good business model. If you really look at it, it's a very difficult business. But it's always a dream for most kind of young chefs, culinarians, is to have that. Now, again, full disclaimer, I am not saying that you cannot make money with a restaurant. It's just very difficult. Okay, it's not the easiest business model. Okay, now no business is going to be just easy. There's always work that you're going to have to put into it. So I'm not trying to get your mindset into like, oh, this is like, even when we talk about the personal chef side of it, that this is some kind of get rich quick type thing. This is an overnight success story type stuff. But I'm just saying that most business models that sometimes chefs go into, the business model itself is just a very difficult one, no matter how good the chef is. And I'll kind of give you some analogies here in a minute. So what are the three main business models that we're going to discuss today? And then the fourth, which is the personal chef business model. Well, number one, it is restaurants. Okay. Number two, food trucks. And number three, catering companies. And again, the fourth one will be personal chef services. And again, I'll talk about that here in a minute as we start to kind of analyze all of them and giving you kind of some of the pros and cons of what those things look like. Okay, so let's start first with restaurants. So again, like I said, same when I was young, when I was really there watching great chefs of the world on PBS, when I was even when I was 10 or 11 years old, I'd record it on VHS, play it back, watch these chefs cooking, and they were cooking in their own restaurant, right? So look up Great Chefs of the World if you've never seen it. You can even find episodes on YouTube. But basically, it's actual professional chefs that own these restaurants, and a lot of times they're back there, or they were the executive chef of the restaurant they worked into or a hotel, and they would film it in the actual commercial kitchen. So it wasn't this Food Network production stage. It was literally like raw, like they're on the line and they're cooking stuff. Of course, it's usually in the morning when no other cooks were around, but it gives me that nostalgia. And when I was young, I wanted to start a restaurant so bad. But as I got older and started realizing that this is probably not the best business model, I changed my tune. Especially knowing what the profitability was for me working in restaurants and hotels for my career. So let's all talk about, I'm going to talk about really kind of a few factors in each. Okay, so again, starting with restaurants. Number one is, what are some cons about the restaurant? Well, startup cost and operational cost is obviously quite the biggest one. And in fact, I'm looking here at my notes. The initial investments usually can exceed $500,000 plus, okay, because there's the kitchen build out, there's the leasing of it, there's the equipment, there's the staffing, there's the ongoing licensing, there's tons of it, right? And so there's a lot of operational cost, a lot of startup operational cost. So it can become very, very, very challenging. Okay. The profit margin of an average restaurant, check this out, is 3 to 5%. That's insane. That means if you're doing $1 million in sales, you're earning $30,000 to $50,000 in profit. I mean, that's ridiculous. You could probably go out and look at like antiques. You can look at different things, and you could basically, go through and probably sell $30,000 worth of antiques a year and flip yard sale stuff and make the same amount of money as you would in a restaurant with far less headache. What are some of the challenges that you'll face as well? Well, there's a massive high failure rate. Approximately 30% of restaurants close within their first year, and approximately 83% of them close within 3 years. That is a staggering number. Now, what are the factors of all that? Yeah, it could be that the chefs don't know what they're doing, the food's bad, the service is bad, all those things. But with the growing cost of food, with the growing cost of labor, it's really difficult to turn a profit. And you got to think about this. You got to have a lot of people coming to the restaurant every single day. So even if you have a high-end restaurant, it might actually have less people, eating there. So you might be creating the same amount of revenue as somewhere like another restaurant where it's a little bit cheaper food and they have to have more volume. Okay. And now, what are some restaurants that do really well? Well, Chick-fil-A built an amazing brand, McDonald's, all these fast food restaurants. Now, they still don't turn the craziest amount of profit, but they stick to very few menu items. They stick to a low price that's able to basically anybody can buy. And that's how they get the job done. But the investment goes a lot into it. In fact, the first 14 years of Chick-fil-A, by the way, they were just not profitable. They almost went bankrupt several times. And so you got to really stick it out if you're going to have a restaurant. So that's a restaurant. Now let's talk a little bit about the second option, which is a food truck. Now the average profit for, I'm looking at this according to Legion Food Trucks article. It says the average profit margin hover around 6.2%, with many food trucks taking up 2 years to become profitable. So their investment is going to be paid back in 2 years. If they're lucky, 6.2% net profit. Now, the startup cost and operational cost are not as much as a restaurant. Of course, you can spend, you can open a restaurant. Like I said, a lot of them exceed over $500,000. You can maybe look at maybe opening one for $150,000, $200,000, which is still a substantial amount of money. Okay, what are the startup costs for a food truck? Well, it says here the average here, according to Custom Food Trucks and Trailers articles on LinkedIn, it says $50,000 to $200,000 is roughly the startup range for the truck, for the licenses, the kitchen equipment, permits, maybe initial inventory, and again, you do have to have staff as well, right? There's ongoing expenses like maintenance, fuel, commissary kitchen rentals, which a lot of people don't realize. When you have a food truck, you actually need to have a commercial kitchen to basically prep out of. You can't just always prep out of your truck. And again, staffing. Now, what are some of the challenges, again, when faced with food trucks? Well, a restaurant, if I'm looking at it from that point of view, the challenge was, again, the high failure rates and, again, intense competition from places like Chick-fil-A versus you trying to do something mom and pop out there, okay? Especially with takeout and delivery, it lowers the value of what you're able to sell. Well, food trucks, you can't really sell a high-end product from a food truck. Think about it. You're not really going to be selling probably filet mignon, lobster, a surf and turf duo on a plate off a food truck. It's probably not going to really happen. Okay, so you got to start to think to yourself at this point, you're limited in a way creatively on what you're going to offer. Now, you can create some really good food off a food truck, but you're not going to sit there again and you can't go like psychotically crazy $80 plate type stuff. Okay, so limited cooking on that side of it, limited storage. You're led to menu constraints. How much can you really do off a food truck? You could do a lot, But again, you can't do so much complexity. Might put a lot more prep time. Regulatory hurdles. This is one thing that I realize that's more up and coming is the laws and local laws and parking restrictions that you have. And think about it. If you're opening a restaurant, going back to kind of the first business model, and you're in a downtown, you're leasing your building for $5,000 a month, which gives me anxiety just thinking about. You really want a food truck just being able to just park across the street, sell during lunchtime when you're trying to fight for lunch customers in the area? No. So a lot of restaurant owners now are trying to go to city halls, city councils and saying, hey, we don't want food trucks in the downtown area. We don't want food trucks in our cities because you're competing with restaurants that can't just pick up and move. Okay, so it's getting harder and harder to where to park, parking restrictions, permits, varying local laws, even banning food trucks at times. And then again, there is high competition because even though you're mobile, you are battling and really trying to compete against restaurants as well. So those are kind of the challenges in the food truck space. Now let's talk about the third option, which is catering. Now the profitability of catering, it can vary. It's usually anywhere from 8 to 11.5% fluctuating depending on where we're at. And so really it's better. It's definitely the profit margins overall average are better than a restaurant, better than a food truck. However, the initial investments are still, again, they're lower, but they're still ranging in, according to this article here, about $10,000 to $50,000 because you have to get a commercial kitchen or rent one, equipment if you need it, if you're going to really do a full-scale catering, licensing, and again, marketing, plus the staff. Okay, so a lot of times, you also have to think about this. There's an increasing growing demand for catering from some of these fast food chains. Applebee's, Chick-fil-A even, McDonald's, McDonald's doesn't have a lot of catering, but they actually have a catering menu. It's kind of crazy. They don't promote it. But a lot of these fast food restaurants now are offering trays of food. So Chick-fil-A, you can get catering up to 150 people and get a bunch of chicken nuggets and get a bunch of mac and cheese. So you're not only, going up against in the normal food world of, other caterers, but also restaurants. And those restaurants have a lot of immense power behind them, right? They have a lot of money, they have a lot of capital, they have a lot of marketing pool. So it's hard to compete with them. And most catering companies, by the way, maybe you're listening or watching to this and you're saying, Chef, I'm more of a high-end chef. I'm not going to be competing with Chick-fil-A. 100%, you're correct. But did you know that out of all the catering companies in the world, okay, and especially in the U.S., this is specifically with the U.S., but I would say probably in the world as well, but in the U.S., the actual numbers are less than 1.5% of all catering companies are considered high-end. Those are the high-end catering companies. For instance, in San Diego, there's some really high ones that are high-end ones that are doing the museums, they're doing the libraries, they're doing the high-end stuff, the real high-end, weddings and things like that, at the museum halls and the venues that are very exclusive. Only a very small fraction of catering companies are high-end, luxurious, catering companies, and they usually have their own kitchen. They have their full executive chef, their full team, their full staff. It's a full-blown thing. So it becomes almost like the same overhead as a restaurant to a degree. So what are, again, some of the challenges on that? Highly competitive with, larger chains like we talked about, the overhead, the operational cost, really getting into the high-end market because the word catering is used so loosely. Oh, Chick-fil-A, they're saying catering. Applebee's, they're saying catering. Panera Bread, they're saying catering. And now when you say you're a high-end caterer, they instantly, the word catering kind of lowers your value status in the customer's mind. So you're kind of battling all these things. Plus, catering can also be challenging depending on seasonal events, different types of things, weddings in the fall, weddings in the spring, it can fluctuate so much with different things like that. And every business can kind of do that to a degree, but that is something that specifically with catering, it fluctuates a lot more. So those are the three main vehicles. Now, before I get to the fourth and really explaining the personal chef service model, what I want to also kind of visually give you, as you're watching or listening to this is I look at it this way. Starting a business is always like climbing a mountain. It's always going to have some effort needed to get to the top. Okay, there is no business that's just snap your fingers and do it and it just works out perfectly. Okay, you have to put in the effort. You have to put in the time. This is like a non-negotiable. Okay, but let's say that you have this mountain. what I look at these business models as, I look at them as vehicles. I want to own my own business and I want to do it successfully. So I want to get to the top of the mountain. You have to pick what vehicle is actually going to get up the mountain better. And that's how I want you to kind of perceptually visualize these business models. The restaurant, the restaurant model is practically like getting in one of those little plastic three-wheel tricycle, little type tricycles, trying to climb this massive mountain. It's almost near impossible. Okay. Food truck, again, a little bit less expensive to get started in, a little bit less of an investment, still having its challenges. It's kind of like maybe trying to get up there, with a unicycle, right? Just a one-wheeled little unicycle trying to get up this mountain. Catering, a little bit better. It's more maybe a bicycle, right? Trying to get up the hill and more of a bicycle. So, hey, the chances of getting to the top are getting better, but they're still hard, but they're getting better. Now, this is going to be my own analogy, but I believe, number 4, the personal chef service model and the personal chef business model is by far the best model to get into. And it's almost like taking a four-wheeler up the mountain. Still got to watch out. You still got to kind of balance yourself. You still got to put it in four-wheel drive. You still got to move a little slow, but it just blows away the other 3 on how to get up to the mountain of success. So let's break down the personal chef business model. And I really want to talk to you about really what the earning potential is, the profitability. Now, we help coach chefs and cooks like yourself, if you're listening to this, on how to start, run, and grow a profitable personal chef business. And we have seen an average. If you're the one doing the cooking when you first start, basically you're self-employed, you're, basically the chef, you're the chief everything officer, the CEO, you can see as high as 80 to 85+% profit margin. So we're going back and doing math. We talked about even the restaurant was 3 to 5%. You did $1 million in sales and you're making $50,000. You'd have to do about $65,000, $70,000 in sales to profit $50,000 in a personal chef business, which I'm telling you is not really a hard thing to accomplish. Okay, so the profit margins are massive compared to the other 3. There's basically almost zero overhead. Your cell phone, your computer, there's some little equipment if you want to buy them, but you don't need a commercial kitchen, okay? You don't need to have this food truck. You don't need to create this space. You don't need to have all this staff on hand. You can go out and start cooking for clients and earning really good money right out the gate. Now, the annual income for that, it depends, right? But in our actual neck of the woods and the people that we've served and helped and coach over the years, over the last almost 7 years now, Chefpreneur has been helping chefs just like yourself really create a business and start this kind of business successfully. We've seen the average cook day result in about $600 to $700, basically profit every time you go cook for somebody. Okay, that's the average. Whether it's private events or cook days and things, it's the average, right? So if you think about that realistically and you have a massive profit, you're looking at about $500 profit every time you go cook for somebody. Think about that. There's not much that you have to do to get to a good income relatively quickly. You do 10 events a month, you're at basically, right, $5,000, roughly, that's average. We actually see it a lot higher than that because an event that you do might feed 15 people, you might have 3 meal prep clients, all these things factor in. But the profitability is so high and the operating expenses and the overhead are practically extinct. Now, the startup to start a personal chef business, realistically, legally on the legal side, I think I've even done a video and a podcast about this, is around $500 or less. Of course, like with our coaching and getting a coach or even having our team build your business, that can range anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 in getting our help in setting up the whole business. But listen, that's a fraction of what you're spending in any of these other 3 business models. It's a fraction, but the profitability comes back so much more. Now, here's what's crazy. Again, we've talked about the challenges over there. Now, there's definitely challenges. Some people say, well, is the scalability of a personal chef can actually scale beyond me? The answer is 100% yes. I've had over the years over 30 contractors, give or take, of chefs that I've used in my business doing, different events all the time. I personally don't cook very much for any clients anymore. A little bit here and there in the Atlanta area that I've done that's just kind of popped up. But realistically, I haven't really been cooking for a lot of clients for about 3.5 years now, which is insane to me. But I've been able to use other chefs, create a great culture, and actually create really good client experiences. And I'm able to be a business owner at this point. So it's definitely able to do. In fact, we help other people do it. But it's really powerful. But even if you didn't even go that direction, the operational side of this is far more easier to accomplish than not. Okay, so the advantages, there's a low barrier to entry, investment wise and regulatory wise, right? You don't need tons of food permits. You don't need all these licenses from the county. There's flexibility in your scheduling, right? So you're able to kind of choose and select what days you want to work, what clients you want to work with, customized menu, can be more creative. You're not limited to some food truck. You're not limited to like, well, I started a pizzeria here and now Pizza Hut and Domino's just moved right next door to me in my restaurant. I'm in a 5-year lease. I can't just pick up and move my whole pizza restaurant somewhere. Okay, so these are some big advantages. Also, an ability to build a strong personal relationship with the people that you serve. This is something that really got to me when I first started because I wanted to have my own business. Like I said, I dreamt about owning a restaurant when I was young until I kind of came into reality, and reality sunk in like, bad business model, don't do it. But what's crazy is I started realizing like I'm able to actually see the people enjoying my food. I'm able to be a part of the experience. I'm able to converse with them. I'm able to have legitimate relationships. In fact, a lot of my clients have become like family. They've shown up at, my kids' birthday parties. They've shown up at, baby showers for my wife and vice versa. You really create a big bond, which brings repeat business and consistency as well into your income. So it's really, in my belief, the best business model for anybody, whether you're watching or listening to this and you're thinking about, do I really want to do these things? So if you're listening to this and you've thought about opening a food truck or your dream is a restaurant. Now, I'm not trying to take those dreams away from you. I'm not trying to say don't do it because I'm telling you can be successful doing it. But I will tell you that there is a better option. There's a better option investment-wise, profitability-wise, in my opinion, creative-wise, life fulfillment-wise. I mean, a lot of chefs get out of the restaurant industry because of the hours, and then they want to own a restaurant. You're going to be even more working, right? You think you work 70 hours a week for somebody else. When you work for yourself in your own restaurant, it's a 120-hour-a-week job. It's insane. So let's recap on some of this comparative overview. So again, restaurants, average profit margin, 3 to 5%. Startup cost, anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000 plus. Operational complexity, high. You have to have all these team members. Market competition, very high. Okay, scalability, that's the only thing that's going for it. You can actually duplicate the restaurant and franchise so you can scale it a bit, but that takes a lot of investment as well. Food trucks, profit around 6.5%, 6.2, 6.5%. Okay, startup cost anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000. The operational complexity, moderate. You're not a lot as many moving pieces as a restaurant, but still moving pieces. Market competition, very high. Scalability, again, that's actually a little lower than a restaurant. It's moderate because, again, you buy more trucks. It becomes a little bit less consistent, and it can really kind of start to look at it as like there's the food truck, and then you have 2 food trucks kind of doing half butt sales, and you don't want that. Catering, an average of around, let's just say 10%, anywhere from 8 to 11.5%. Profitability, moderate investment, you're looking at $15,000, $15,000 to $50,000. Operational complexity, almost like a restaurant, kind of high. Market competition, again, you're battling all these other, everything from fast food restaurants to other high-end caterers. Market competition's high. Scalability, again, moderate. You're kind of stuck into an area, so you really can't move too much. You can travel. Personal chef, though, average profit margin, 80+% profit. Startup cost anywhere from legally $500 to get started. With coaching, with our help, things like that. And I'm not even trying to sell you something. I'm just saying, with our help, that's going to be the some of the bigger investment part. Plus, then the marketing, the branding, the website, all that stuff. But you're looking at anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000, plus. Operational complexity, extremely low. Does not take hours and hours and hours to run this business. Market competition is low. A lot of chefs are out there. Yes, there's more and more growing personal chefs, especially since Chefpreneur has been out there helping people coach. But to be honest, there's so much room. You don't need hundreds of customers to stay in business. You need tens of customers a month to stay in business and make really good money. And the scalability is, I would say, moderate to high, because if you build a really good brand, you can expand in other areas and other cities. So in conclusion, in my opinion, for chefs and cooks to really seek a profitable business model that's really has low startup cost, high profit margin, simple operational complexities, you don't feel like you're losing your mind trying to run this business. In my opinion, the personal chef business model is the best out there, hands down. Listen, if you want some help in starting your personal chef business, make sure you click on the links below. We always have different resources for you. And I really, really appreciate you guys tuning in today. And I hope that you guys got a lot of value at this. Again, keep subscribing to our YouTube channel, our podcast, anywhere you're finding it. We'd love to just share these videos with you. And we're going to be teaching a lot more on these videos and really encouraging you, motivating you, inspiring you to really take your future in your own hands and build something amazing. So until next time, we wish you the best. God bless you, and talk soon.